because I have to. Yes. Okay. Maybe there should be national holiday every day, huh? Get more people. Okay. So, except for those who are on medical or doctor's emergency call, all cell phones should kindly be put to rest in the passive mode. Yeah. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajadana Randana Yashodanandana Brajadana Randana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajadana Randana Yashodanandana Brajadana Randana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radhe, Radha, Madhava Radha. Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Gaura Pimanandi. Jaya Vishnupada Paramahamsa. Pri Vrajagacharya Stotra Satta Sri Simad, His Divine Grace. Actually, when we offer, we should not be just bending down. We should be offering.
Like this.
Yeah.
Like that.
Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Pri Vrajagacharya Stotra Satta Sri Simad, His Divine Grace. Srila Bhakti Bhakti Swami Sri Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Skandi Biti Founder Charya Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki Namacharya Srila Hridayas Thakur ki Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda ki Harinam Sankirtan ki Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Taksuramiritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavam Sham Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanditam Scha Hai Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kansana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vansakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer our respectful obeisances unto Narayana, Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayana Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahmasamitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Deshreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasyayanam Mahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God as Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Sarabhyai Namaha Om Sarabhyai Namaha Om Sarabhyai Namaha Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim Yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam Yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Jai Sri Prabhupada ki. Jai. Welcome. Huh? What? Other phone?
This is not working.
It's there. Huh?
Where it is kept?
Where's the phone? It's in the room. It's not a big room. It's on the left side. There's a green bag, and I think I might have put it on the table. And actually, it's being plugged. I mean, being charged. It's plugged, being charged. Technology is distracting us in so many ways. Your phone not working?
My phone is working.
Oh, your phone is working. My phone is working. Other people. Well, I don't know. Well, I mean, he's a guy who knows.
Is there any password?
Huh?
Is there any password?
No. Well, the universal password. Whoops. What is this? Well, yeah. The universal password for the Hare Krishna movement, 108, 108. Let the whole world know. So good luck. I mean, there's thing like this also there. There are two. You can bring it? Yes. I should have initiated him early this morning, but he was not available. So welcome everyone to our morning Bhagavatam class on this special day of Dwadasi and your national day, holiday. Yes. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 1, one of our favorite cantos. Canto 1 is having many very important verses, and we will be reading one of those. There's connection in that small bag. There's some whatever, or maybe on the table. You have to connect, lines. There's two. No, there's one. Yeah, but there's a connection, right? And there are two of those. One is for me. Upakalpate. Narthasya Dharmaikantasya Kamo Labhaya Ihi Smritaha 1.2.9 Adharmasya hyapavargyasya Narthorthayopakalpate Narthasya dharmaikantasya Kamo labhaya hi smritaha Dharmasya hyapavargyasya Actually, in Sanskrit, when we recite verses, we connect vowels together. So it is not hi apavargasya, it is hiya. Hiya apavargasya. Yeah, it makes for more smooth and harmonious sound vibration. So Dharmasya hyapavargasya Narthorthayopakalpate Narthasya dharmaikantasya Kamo labhaya hi smritaha Dharmasya hyapavargyasya Narthorthayopakalpate Narthasya dharmaikantasya Kamo labhaya hi smritaha. Yes, someone.
Dharmasya hi apavargasya
Dharmasya hyapavargasya
Nartho arthaya upakalpate
Narthorthaya upakalpate
Narthasya dharmaikantasya
Narthasya dharmaikantasya
Kamo labhaya hi smritaha
Kamo labhaya hi smritaha
Dharmasya yapavargasya Nartho arthaya upakalpate Dharme kantasya
Narthasya
dharme kantasya Kamo labhaya smritaha.
Ladies, Matajis, anyone?
Dharmasya pavargasya
Dharmasya yapavargasya Narthorthaya Pakalpate Nartasya Dharmakantasya Kamo Labhaya Hismitaha Dharmasya Yapavargasya Narthorthaya Pakalpate Nartasya Dharmakantasya Kamo Labhaya Hismitaha. Gurukul means you. Dharmasya Yapavargasya Narthorthayo Pakalpate Nartasya Dharmakantasya Kamo Labhaya Hismitaha. Dharmasya, occupational engagement. He, certainly, apavargasya. Ultimate liberation. Na, not. Artha, end. Arthaya, for material gain. Upakalpate, is meant for. Na, neither. Arthasya, of material gain. Dharma eka antasya, for one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service. Kamaha, sense gratification. Labhaya, attainment of. He, exactly. Smitaha, is described by the great sages. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gains to cultivate sense gratification. Kindly everyone repeat after me. All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate a sense gratification. Purport. We have already discussed that pure devotional service to the Lord is automatically followed by perfect knowledge and detachment from material existence. That was a previous verse. Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udaradi trivena bhakti yogena. Yes. Actually, that's not the one I was referring to. It's the one that begins with... No. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayositaha Janati Asuvairagyam Jnanam Sayada Haitukam. This is what Prabhupada is referring to here. But there are others who consider that all kinds of different occupational engagements, including those of religion, are meant for material gain. The general tendency of any ordinary man in any part of the world is to gain some material profit in exchange for religious or any other occupational service. Even in the Vedic literatures, for all sorts of religious performances, an allurement of material gain is offered, and most people are attracted by such allurements or blessings of religiosity. Why are such so-called men of religion allured by material gain? Because material gain can enable one to fulfill desires, which in turn satisfy sense gratification. This cycle of occupational engagements includes so-called religiosity, followed by material gain, and material gain followed by fulfillment of desires. Sense gratification is the general way for all sorts of fully occupied men. But in the statement of Sutta Goswami, as per the verdict of the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is nullified by the present shloka. One should not engage himself in any sort of occupational service for material gain only, nor should material gain be utilized for sense gratification. How material gain should be utilized is described as follows. Translation again: all occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. One of many important verses in the Bhagavatam, which is underlining what is meant to be central and what is meant to be the main focus for all of us, as described also in the Srimad Bhagavatam, what is meant to be the supreme occupation. Savai pumsam paro dharma, the param dharma. Bhagavatam especially focuses on the param dharma, but also gives guidelines for other types of dharma, which may not be the supreme dharma. Just like we have, it is often referred to, dharma, it is referred to here actually, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. That can be understood from a material point of view, or it can also be understood from a spiritual point of view. The verse we just quoted, Savai Pumsam Paro Dharma, so we are referring here to Param Dharma. The Param Dharma, of course, for all living entities, is to engage in bhakti, devotional service. Savai Pumsam Paro Dharma, Yatho Bhakti Adhoksaji. And that activity of bhakti, which is the supreme, ultimate occupation for all living entities, must have the two qualities of ahaitukiya pritihata, isn't it? Without material motivation and without interruption, correct? Yes. Therefore, Prabhupada's famous statement, 24 hours a day. That's what, without interruption, even in dreams. And one may ask, how to engage in devotional service in dreams? So the easy answer and to the question is, if we are, the more we are fully absorbed in devotional activities during the day, then there is all likelihood, more likelihood, that we will also be dreaming. We will have devotional dreams. Devotional dreams, yeah. So in this way, those who are, on the level of liberated souls, paramahamsas, uttamadikari, because they're constantly engaged in devotional activities, devotional thoughts, devotional desires, thinking, feeling, and willing. Their mind is always absorbed in Krishna. So when they so-called sleep, their thinking, feeling, and willing is also in the same line. So this is actually our aim as devotees, to come to that level and platform of constantly being absorbed in Krishna consciousness. That is the meaning actually of Krishna consciousness. Now, there is also, in that understanding of Dharma as supreme occupation, the Param Dharma, then Artha and Kama takes on a different understanding. Normally, when we think of Artha, we think of money. We think of money that generally we use for sense gratification, Kama. But Kama doesn't only mean sense gratification in terms of, let's say, for our personal satisfaction. Kama is also translated, there's that verse, Sarva Kama Dugamahi. Sarva Kama Dugamahi means, very important theme actually that we'll be looking at later today or tomorrow, that we all have basic necessities. So Kama also means basic necessities, isn't it? Like, because we have a material body, the material body has some basic necessities in terms of everyday needs to have some food for maintaining the body. When we take prasadam, that prasadam being offered to the Lord is actually to maintain the body. It's not for sense gratification. Ordinary people who take food generally is for sense gratification, isn't it? So Artha also, Artha means some kind of material gain or material facilities. And the main point or the main message here is that actually Artha, Kama, and Dharma is all meant for the primary and ultimate goal of life, which is self-realization. Means our material activities, our material work. And that is why in the Shastra we speak about prescribed duties. We have two levels of prescribed duties. What are the two levels of prescribed duties? Huh? Swadharma. What are the two levels of Swadharma? Well, what's one level of Swadharma? What does Swadharma mean? Swadharma, original, natural. Isn't it? What is Swadharma? Means what is meant to be the natural, original, occupational duty of the living entity. So my question is, when we are in the spiritual world, we're not in the spiritual world right now, by the way, when we are fortunate to be in the category of Nitya Siddha, Nitya Mukta. What is meaning of Nitya Siddha? Nitya Mukta? Eternally liberated, isn't it? The vast majority of living entities are in the spiritual world, not in the material world. Just like the majority of citizens are not in the prison.
Right.
Maybe they should be in Kali Yuga, but the majority of citizens are in the free world. They're not in the prison house, in the prison. So we are the prisoners. We are like prisoners in the material world, but the majority of people are in Vaikuntha, somewhere in Vaikuntha. Very fortunate ones are in Goloka, but anywhere in Vaikuntha is. So those liberated souls, different from our situation here in the material world, we are what is called Nityabadha. We are eternally conditioned. What is the meaning of eternally conditioned? It doesn't actually mean eternally conditioned. I mean, because we can, yeah, it means for a very long time we are conditioned by these modes of material nature. But the point I want to make is that Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, when we cultivate spiritual knowledge, we can come to understand the importance of, or the real actual meaning of Artha and Kama. Artha means to meet our basic needs or necessities of life as ordained, as prescribed in the Shastra. So I was asking the question about Swadharma, coming back to my question. There are two levels, very important to understand, two levels of Swadharma.
Varnashram.
What are the two levels of Swadharma? Varnashram is connected with one of them,
Body
yes.
level
Body
and
level
soul
and the
level.
Huh?
soul level, both. Body and soul, the two.
Yeah, so that means, to make it more simple, there's what is called spiritual Swadharma. And then, naturally, there is material Swadharma. So spiritual Swadharma has to do with the Atma, the soul, which is Bhakti, devotional service. And material Swadharma has to do with the body, has to do with all of us who are here in the material world and who have to deal with the gunas, the modes of material nature. So for those living entities, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam give us some information. What is meant to be our, what we call, we could say Vedic prescribed duties. Most of us actually don't know what are the Vedic prescribed duties. And that's why we should attend Bhagavatam class. To come to understand that actually there are specific prescribed duties that it's helpful if we put the word Vedic in front. Vedic prescribed duties. So prescribed duties according to Vedas, which again are primarily and we could say more easily given, given to help us towards the primary goal of life, which means to cultivate transcendental knowledge. In other words, there are certain material activities that more easily will help us to advance in spiritual life. And there are other material activities or material duties which will make it more difficult. Small example, and there are many examples in our present day modern society. People who work in factories. I mean, if somebody, even we have devotees who work in factories, but the point is that is not the most ideal occupation. One may not have a choice at this point, but it's not the most congenial place to think about Krishna. It's not the most ideal occupation that in a more simple and natural way, more spontaneous way, helps us to think about Krishna. In other words, Krishna has created this material world in such a way that there are, actually all of the occupations, all of the duties, all of the work and all of the professions we are meant to take up, which are defined actually in the Shastra, are meant to help us more easily know about and understand Krishna, and are meant to help us make advancement towards that goal. And of course here specifically it is meant, or it is explaining how even material activities, let's say professions, they're not meant for sense gratification. Even material activities are meant to help us understand more and advance towards the ultimate goal of life. Hare Krishna. Yeah. It's calling the attention of the pujari. Some attention is needed on the altar. Actually, this is a very subtle but a very important point that in modern day society is practically unknown. Our attention is drawn to the altar. Our attention is drawn to the lotus feet of Krishna. Yeah, maybe a flower or something. Anyways, turban, eh? Okay. Yes, yes. I think as devotees we can all, to some extent understand that money is not meant for sense gratification. But also we understand that money is necessary. I mean, most of you are here actually for that purpose. I mean, or wherever we are, everyone has to work. That is artha. But then there is what is called paramartha. Paramartha, artha is not only meaning money, means gain, asset. So in the Vedic culture, gain and asset is seen in a different way than in the ordinary material world, or ordinary material sense. Yes, money, wealth, which generally we understand as money, in the Vedic culture is different, isn't it? Wealth, for example, one who has, from a Vedic perspective, one who has knowledge, transcendental knowledge, is considered wealthy, isn't it? One who has land is also considered wealthy in the Vedic culture. So the understanding of wealth is different because the goal and the purpose of life is different. So prescribed duties is a very important subject matter, which in modern day prescribed duties may be translated as profession or occupation, because in the Vedic culture there are defined professions and occupations. But those professions and occupations that are recommended in the Vedic culture are arranged in such a way that they will more easily, more naturally help us to advance spiritually. So I was talking about factory work, and many other types of professions that are presently existing in the modern world are less conducive for spiritual advancement. And part of what we as devotees, we as a society, part of what our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada wanted to do, wanted to introduce, and this is a very important point, he wanted to reintroduce a culture, which we call Vedic culture, which will more easily help us to keep our primary goal and objective in life, in the forefront. Modern day society is not doing that because the primary goal and objective that is being promoted, isn't it? I mean, pretty well all the governments in the world are promoting what is called economic development, isn't it? So many different policies, so many different, but for the primary goal and purpose of creating a so-called material, comfortable, pleasant situation. Falsely thinking that this will actually make us happy. Largely that is there because those who are promoting these policies are devoid of spiritual knowledge, isn't it? Or not understanding actually that the primary goal of life is to become self-realized. And the wonderful thing about this also, like if we look at the lives of the residents of Vrindavan, When we read about the pastimes of Krishna and Balaram, and so many personalities in Vrindavan, when we read the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is focused on, isn't it, the activities, we come to know that the residents of Vrindavan are materially very opulent. They're rich,
Yes.
not only in terms of land, but isn't it? Matajis wear golden bangles, not plastic ones. Don't mind. I mean, they wear silk cloth,
Yes.
you know. They have earrings made of gold. I mean, they have all kinds of jewelry. They're rich, materially speaking. They're rich. They're materially rich because they're spiritually rich. There's a direct link. Now, it doesn't mean that the more you chant Hare Krishna, you become rich. Oh, that's why I should chant Hare Krishna. What we should understand is that actually the more we follow Dharma, especially the Param Dharma, Dharma has these two meanings: the spiritual Swadharma, which is Bhakti, and the material Swadharma, which is Vedic prescribed duties. Material Swadharma means different professions that are recommended in the Shastra. In the last 200 years, we have introduced all kinds of material Swadharma, which is not actually Swadharma. We have introduced all kinds of material occupations, material professions that are connected especially with industry, with modern day technology. And the whole modern education, when we yawn, we either have to make sound, otherwise some spirit which you may not like will enter the body. It's true. You have to be careful. Yeah, that's why in Vedic culture, when we yawn, we go like this to just block off, whoever might be wandering around. Oh, we make some noise because if you make noise, they go away. Yeah. You're not the only one. Why is that problem? So that's why, unless we read and hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, we will not understand this. It's somewhat subtle. Of course, once we know it, it's not so subtle. It's obvious. It becomes obvious. But there's a subtle difference when we speak of dharma in terms of occupation. There's two levels of subtlety. One is the obvious subtlety, which is, of course, more obvious, between spiritual occupation and material occupation. Spiritual occupation, spiritual swadharma means the activities of the jiva, which is primarily, the 9 activities of devotional service, Sravanam, Kirtanam, Visusmaranam, up until Atmanivedanam, isn't it? So these are the spiritual activities of the jiva, that is, defining what is called spiritual swadharma. Now, material swadharma, if one is not understanding about Vedic culture, if one doesn't know about Srimad Bhagavatam, if one doesn't know about Bhagavad Gita, one will think that any kind of activities that brings money is good. And that this money that I get is for me, is for my sense gratification. But that is not supported by Shastra. That is for those who are devoid of transcendental understanding. Those who don't know that actually the purpose of life is to minimize to the point of actually stopping completely sense gratification. And that is only possible. We can only stop material sense gratification when we develop that higher understanding that we are meant to engage in bhakti or devotional service. So this touches on a very major topic which we will be looking at in the next couple of days, and definitely the whole topic of varnashrama will come up, because in varnashrama dharma, which is explained and mentioned in so many places in the Bhagavatam, it is within this system, this God-created system, Krishna creates, isn't it, the system of varnashrama. It is within that system that we will come to know, to understand what are meant to be and what are the ideal occupational duties, what are meant to be the more natural activities of human beings, that when properly understood and properly taken up, will simultaneously fulfill all of our material necessities. All of our basic necessities of life will be fulfilled, and simultaneously we will be able to advance spiritually. That is especially found in these two verses, the one we were referring to, Savai Pumsam Paro Dharmo Jato Bhakti Radho Saji Ahaituki Pratihata Yayatma Suprasidati. All of the necessities of the Atma. Atma in that verse means both the body, the mind, and also the soul. Yeah. Same thing is also explained by Narada Muni in the 7th canto. Dharma mulam hi bhagavan sarva vedamayo harihi smritam cha tabidam rajan yena chatma prasidati. The last line practically is the same. That is 7, canto number 7, chapter 11, text number 7. 7, 11, 7. Very important verse also that is conveying the same meaning. That when we understand about dharma, when we understand about spiritual dharma, that we call spiritual swadharma, and when we understand about material swadharma, then things become balanced. And this material swadharma makes our life more easy, more simple, more pleasant, more happy. Who wants to be more happy? Yeah, everyone. Yes. So when we hear, that's why we need to hear on a regular basis, on a daily basis, these various instructions from the Bhagavatam, and Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam especially, then we can learn how to live in such a way, as long as we are here in the material world, so that we can get out of this material world as quickly as possible by taking up the prescribed duties and activities that are given to us both on the spiritual level and the material level. So that's a little bit what is being conveyed here, that actually, why do people spend money for sense gratification? They want to be happy, isn't it?
Yes.
People want to be happy, so they do all kinds of things to satisfy their senses, etc. But the end result is that people are only temporarily happy, and they're not really happy because it's very shallow. So happiness is, Prabhupada describes that happiness is the birthright of all living entities. We all have a natural desire, a natural tendency to be happy. But we, as Krishna explains, we can only be happy when we regain our original constitutional position as eternal servants of Krishna. So those who don't know about Krishna, those who don't know about their original nature, they are endeavoring to be happy in the material way, through sense gratification, through this body, or through the mind or the material intelligence. But that is not our real position. Yeah, that is not real happiness. How many kinds of happiness are there? I mean, unlimited, but there are three types of happiness that Srila Rupa Goswami explains. Whoever reads the Nectar Devotion will immediately understand. Oh, yes. What are those three types of happiness? Who can say one? The one that we're talking about?
Material happiness.
Material happiness, yes. Majority of people actually only know about material happiness.
Brahman happiness.
Because most people don't read the Nectar Devotion. Don't even know it exists. Right. And second level of happiness, yes, it is called, yes, Brahmananda. It's called spiritual happiness. And we should all know what is the third type of happiness.
Shuddha Bhakti.
Yes, that is called devotional happiness. There's a difference between spiritual happiness and devotional happiness. Spiritual happiness, generally, for most people, means Brahmananda. Yeah. Impersonal type of happiness means Aham Brahmasmi. But for devotees, for those who are knowing about bhakti, then higher than spiritual happiness is Prabhupada sometimes he uses the word Sevananda. Yeah, Premananda means Sevananda. Means activities of bhakti, of devotional service. So unless and until one comes to that level of Premananda or Sevananda, one will tend to get involved with the other two lower levels, and most people, of course, will be on the level of material happiness, or trying to become material happy through material sense gratification. So that's why in the Vedic culture, it is only when we develop this Sevananda, this means through activities of bhakti, that we can give up the lower levels of happiness, that we can give up ultimately so-called material happiness, isn't it? Yeah. And the Vedic culture therefore teaches us to arrange our lives in such a way that more easily, more quickly, we can attain this higher level, and therefore we often read or hear, learning to be satisfied with the minimum necessities of life. Minimum necessities of life is only possible to realize, to experience, or to live when we cultivate this higher knowledge, this higher understanding. We will give up $5 if somebody gives us $100, right? Because the 5 is already contained in 100. So bhakti is that, of course, it's more than $100. But bhakti is what when we are fortunate to cultivate bhakti, devotional service, then the lower needs and necessities are automatically fulfilled. And also, as I was mentioning a few minutes ago, in the example of Vrindavan, the residents of Vrindavan, because they're mainly focused on spiritual development, their material needs and necessities are automatically fulfilled. Yeah. So I will read this again. Huh?
Time to break the fast. If you want water,
I'm sorry?
you get water.
No, I'm just looking at the time. Of course, today no one has to rush to work, right?
Yes, Maharaj.
So this is our verse. All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. Yes. They should never be performed for material gain. And furthermore, according to sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. So although the residents of Vrindavan are materially opulent, they are spiritually they are the most opulent spiritually, and they're also very opulent materially. But they don't use those material gains or material opulence for sense gratification. Which is very interesting, because unless one is spiritually emancipated, unless one is spiritually advanced, the tendency will be to use material things for. That's because those who are spiritual, those who are devotional, specifically, they're fully satisfied. And they only can become fully satisfied by such spiritual or devotional activities. And therefore, they have no interest for so-called material enjoyment or material. They're already attracted to what is spiritual. They're already developing this, we say, param drisva nivartati, this superior taste, higher taste. Therefore that book, Higher Taste. Prasadam is higher taste. Yes. So in Krishna consciousness, it means how, by following initially various rules and regulations, how gradually we can develop or uncover that higher taste, which is within each and every one of us. That higher taste is connected with the Atma, with the soul within the heart. And if the Atma, the soul, does not become awakened, then we remain on the bodily platform and are engaged in so-called activities of enjoyment, but that is not really enjoyment. Yeah. So any thoughts or comments or questions on the subject matter at hand?
But sometimes we are thinking that our spiritual dharma and material dharma is material.
We are thinking that material dharma is material.
No, but we understand after the devotional service that we are doing everything, and this devotional service sometimes we think accordingly our material things and all. So both we are mixing, so that will make a little mechanical process. So how to overcome that one?
Yes, if I understand what you're asking, is that even as devotees, we sometimes mix.
Yes.
Yes. The idea is that, as described nicely by Srila Rupa Goswami, there are different levels, isn't it, of bhakti. So the beginning level of bhakti, which we know as sadhana, in sadhana bhakti, yes, because we have not attained that professional stage, so there is still allurement or attraction to material things. And therefore, one has to be cautious because even though we have knowledge as devotees, if we're not cautious, we'll again be engaged in activities which will be binding us, activities of sense gratification. So therefore, to avoid, what's the expression? Somebody is getting well, then he has somehow, he falls again. There's a word for it. In order to not be alert, then therefore one has to take seriously the various guidelines or instructions that are given by our acharyas, isn't it? It's like someone who's diseased. We're all diseased actually, because we're not in our original position. So, but one who's materially sick, he's given certain guidelines, isn't it, by the doctor? So, relapse, that's the word I was looking for. Even as devotees, we can have a relapse and come again to material activities, and even sometimes abandon for some period of time. Of course, once having taken up the process of bhakti, devotional service, that will remain an eternal asset for us, but we may be, that's described actually in the Bhagavatam. The Maya is very powerful. So there's two activities of Maya. One is to cover the covering potency of Maya. Majority of people who know nothing about Krishna, they're simply covered by Maya. Means they're totally under the influence of the three modes of material nature. Now, those who are fortunate, all of us who are sitting in the Bhagavatam, we would not be here unless we have some interest, some information. But still, for those who are practicing spiritual life, devotional service, there is what is called the throwing potency of Maya. Yes. We are going around chanting nicely, but then we allow ourselves to become distracted by Maya. So Maya is testing us all the time, and until and unless we come to that fully liberated stage of Uttamadikari, Paramahamsa, then we may be distracted. So how not to be distracted? Then we have to take the prescribed processes that are given by both Shastra and the Acharyas. Means we have to keep very close association with devotees. We have to be very, very regulated in our activities. We have to attend, as all of you did, Mangalarti every day. We have to take the necessary precautions so that we will not be allured by Maya. In particular, as Prabhupada would explain, we have to take the most powerful medicine, which is the chanting of the holy name, and we have to take also, or follow the prescribed diet of Krishna Prasadam. So the whole, all of the instructions given by Srila Rupa Goswami are to help us actually become very strong. Means we have to, as devotees, we have to at least, as quickly as possible, come to the level of nistha. Nistha means to become steady in devotional service. And steadiness in devotional service, Prabhupada explains how steadiness actually means attaining the mode of goodness. Everyone in the material world, especially in Kali Yuga, is very, very strongly influenced by the two lower modes of nature, Rajagun, Tamagun. So by knowledge, by proper association, within a relatively short period of time, we can come to the mode of goodness. Means nistha. Nistha means mode of goodness. And Prabhupada explains nistha means following very strictly the four rules and regulations. If we don't follow the four rules and regulations, we cannot come to the mode of goodness, isn't it? And from that mode of goodness, then slowly, gradually, we can make a further advancement to the other levels. Of course, in the example of Bharat Maharaj, it is understood that he was already beyond nistha, he was at the level of bhava. Even at the level of bhava, one may be distracted, isn't it? As he was, by being attracted to the deer, small deer, unprotected deer. So that means that we have to, the more we are serious in following what is recommended by our acharyas, what is written in the Shastra, then we will be sufficiently protected so that we will not be distracted or allured. And of course, the whole modern setup and the whole modern civilization is promoting actually all kinds of material activities of sense gratification, so we have to be extra cautious and careful. So that is up to each and every individual to become. Nobody can become serious for us. We have to learn, as Prabhupada would explain, we have to learn to fly our own airplane. Correct. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yes. Other?
Maharaj,
Yes.
You made a very wonderful point, Maharaj, and really were very inspired, Maharaj. And whenever you come here, you get so much inspiration for this kind of lifestyle. But again, as you mentioned, we all are so conditioned actually, Maharaj.
Yes, yes.
In due course of time, again, we think that, okay, this is fine and we mingle with this lifestyle.
Yes.
Maharaj, the point which you mentioned now, this Srila Prabhupada wanted to introduce a culture which is very conducive for a spiritual life.
Srila Prabhupada wanted?
To introduce a culture.
Yes.
And so what we understand, Maharaj, we see nowadays that find the first part, which is, okay, take initiation, and wherever you're situated, sthana siddha sruti gatam, you can practice devotional service.
Yes.
And most of us, we are believing in this, but this part where really we should have some such kind of culture or lifestyle which can be very congenial for the devotional service. We don't think much about this, Maharaj, at this point of time.
Yes. Yes. That's a defect.
Yes, Maharaj. We think that, okay, wherever we are situated, okay, as you mentioned, factory work, okay, fine, what way you do, we have taken initiation, we are chanting our rounds, some associations, and going on, that's fine.
Yes.
But when we hear from such personality, then really it's appealing that, no, this is what is very much needed actually.
Yes.
Otherwise our...
So we need to, yeah, so the point you're making is that we generally, after coming in contact with Krishna consciousness, after becoming initiated, and also it's mentioned that, okay, wherever you are, chant the holy name, practice devotional service, and in this way, gradually advance in spiritual life. At the same time, there are certain verses and certain purports that that kind of like help us to go beyond, so to speak, to what we are generally kind of accepting as the norm, or the point being that actually wherever we may be as devotees, okay, very often we don't have too much of a choice in terms of where we are and what we have to do. At the same time, it's important for us to know what is meant to be the ideal. And that can only be more clearly understood when we have a more clear understanding of the mission of this movement. When we understand more clearly what was or what is Srila Prabhupada's vision for, and that of our previous acharyas, but in our case especially because Srila Prabhupada is our founder acharya, and he has given and explained his vision in his books, largely. Also in conversations and letters. So, unless we identify, unless we know and identify with that vision of our founder acharya, then in all likelihood we will maybe fall somewhat short of what we are meant to do, both individually and collectively. Isn't it? Now, we cannot all, take a danda and start traveling all over the world, 14 times around the world like Prabhupada did. But we can all be part of that mood and mentality that Srila Prabhupada, as our founder Acharya, had. And we need to know, for example, on the spiritual transcendental level, we know that actually our goal is to become pure devotees. You know, we hear from Shastra, even if we have one small material desire, we have to come back to fulfill that one small material desire. We have to remain in the material world. So and we all know that that's not easy. Not at all easy. That's practically impossible. It's only possible by the mercy of Krishna, by the mercy of Guru, by the mercy of Vaishnavas. But actually that's the goal. And we cannot compromise. Shastra cannot, we can't enter the spiritual world if we have material desires. It's that simple. Because in the spiritual world there's nothing material. Everything is spiritual. So if we have even a small material desire, we cannot go there. We cannot enter. So even though we understand that this is not at all easy, still that's the goal. And there's no compromise. We have to come to that level. In a similar way, in a very similar way, when we speak of culture, Vedic culture, whatever is in the Shastra, whatever Krishna gives, whatever Krishna reveals to Lord Brahma, that is perfect knowledge, isn't it? That is the special feature of Vedic knowledge. Vedas are giving us perfect knowledge. So that means that Vedic knowledge is giving us a perfect culture also. Perfect culture. Vedic culture is giving us perfect occupations. Perfect prescribed duties are defined in the Shastra. That is especially nicely elaborated by Narada Muni in the 7th canto, chapter 11 to 15. Narada Muni's dissertation on Varnashram.
Yes.
Yeah. And therefore, this is a whole area which we have, for different reasons, we have not, I would say, sufficiently addressed or sufficiently thought of. But when Prabhupada speaks about part of my mission in establishing the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is to introduce Varnashrama, which is directly connected with occupational duty, prescribed duties, and culture. And when Prabhupada makes a statement that 50% of my mission is yet to be fulfilled, then we have to start scratching our head. What does that mean? What is that 50% and how to go about introducing it, isn't it? So we may not all be able to do what needs to be done, but we can, in different ways, I think we should be aware and we should try in whatever way we can to come closer to that. We'll be spending some time in some practical ways how we can actually do that, regardless of where we may be located. Yeah. So it means that all of us, regardless of what work we're doing, regardless of where we may be located, by cultivating this this understanding that Prabhupada has given us, which is there in his books, in his conversations, etc., then even though we may not be completely there, we can gain gradually more and more understanding of that culture, of that Vedic culture, and we can do whatever we can. Small example, incense. Every day we use incense because we do puja. So commercial incense is actually very bad. It's full of chemicals. I mean, practically speaking, so many things that are commercially produced,
Yes.
commercial products, are in so many ways contaminated. The food we're eating, the milk we are taking, if we are taking milk, even the clothes we are wearing. Most of us, probably 90%, if not 99%, are wearing clothes which is not healthy, which is not natural, isn't it? And most of the clothes is all petroleum-based, actually. It's synthetic.
Yes.
So that's affecting our consciousness negatively. Everything that is polluted, if we, in most cities of the world, Delhi being number one in India, most polluted city in terms of air pollution. The more we breathe air that is polluted, that affects our body. We become unhealthy, isn't it? We all need fresh air, pure air. That helps us to remain materially healthy. So we can look at everything actually in our lives. So because modern day society is set up not based on the Vedic prescribed culture, so we are very, very much in subtle and also not so subtle ways negatively affected. So therefore, we should want to change that. The only way to change that actually is by reading on a regular basis and by cultivating, trying to understand. Actually, that is meant to be the perfection. That's how our acharyas describe. The perfection of a disciple is actually to understand, to know not only the instructions, but the mood and mentality of Guru, isn't it? I try to make this point generally. In temples we have full-time devotees. They've moved in the temple, and they're following, practicing nicely. We generally understand full-time devotees as those people in the temple. But actually all of us are meant to become full-time devotees. Full-time devotees are not only in the temple. Full-time devotees are everywhere. It's a question simply of becoming more individually committed to the cause and the goal and the mission, actually. We need to feel part of that mission, isn't it? And all of us can do this. All of us have to do that. If we're not part of that mission, we will not be able to come to that higher level. We will not be able to realize what are the goals and objectives of that mission. And I mean, that is central because that's there in the Bhagavad Gita. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samsthapanaya. Sambhavami yuge yuge. Krishna comes to re-establish Dharma. Especially in Kali Yuga, at this time in history, that is extremely needed. Otherwise, everything is becoming adharma. Everyone is following adharma, etc. So, regardless of as Lord Chaitanya has nicely explained, Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nyasi, Shudra Kenenoy, Jai Krishna Tattva, Se Guru Hoy. Devotee means someone who has to become Guru, who has to share this knowledge, who has to live that knowledge of the Bhagavatam, etc. So, the duty and the responsibility for all of us is to just, pray for that mercy from Guru and Krishna to become more committed. Prabhupada says, actually, what's the most important quality we need to develop as devotees? Enthusiasm. Utsaha. Yeah. If we're not enthusiastic, we cannot continue our individual practice. We cannot find ways to somehow bring others to Krishna consciousness, etc. Yeah. Other? So, yeah.
Stop there, Maharaj. So, Prashad, 9 o'clock?
Huh?
9 o'clock is served Prashad? 9 o'clock or 8:30?
I mean, you can serve it whenever.
Okay, Maharaj.
Yeah.
And then we'll leave around 11:30 for the next program.
For the next program, 11:30. Okay, it's fine. Yes.
So, we are very, very grateful to Maharaj for inviting